Thank you very much, Speaker. In 2020, Denise Sandil placed a single white cross for her son Miles, who she lost to an overdose. Today, Sudbury's crosses were changed to more than 244 crosses. The Office of the Chief Coroner just released its preliminary report, and last year 5 northern cities had the highest opioid mortality rates per 100,000 population. Sudbury made the list along with North Bay, Thunder Bay, Sault Ste. Marie, and Timmins. Last year, 106 Sudburyans died from opioid-related overdoses, and that was an increase from 98. Those are the facts, and the facts don't lie, Speaker. My question is to the Premier. How many people have to die before the Premier admits that the Conservative government's actions have done nothing to address this crisis?
Associate Minister of Mental Health and Addiction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for that question. Quite the opposite. Our government has been doing a great deal to support all Ontarians with respect to their mental health and addictions. With the Roadmap to Wellness and investments of $525 million on an annualized basis, the $3.8 billion, the $90 million that went specifically into the Addiction Recovery Fund, those beds are focused, 54% of them, in Northern Ontario. What that has done is created 7,000 treatment spots. We are catching up and doing the work that wasn't done by the previous government, supported by the NDP. And those investments in Sudbury, for instance, over $12 million towards building a continuum of care. That includes over $2 million in annual new funding specifically for children and youth, because we're investing not only in building a continuum of care, but in prevention and building resiliency in children as well.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Speaker. And back to the Premier. I've asked this question to the Premier several times. He has never answered, even though he's here. You know who's taking real action, Speaker? Razo Access Network. Since October, Razo has been running Sudbury's supervised consumption site, Speaker, and every day they help people and they save lives. But without provincial funding, they may not be able to continue beyond the end of this year. Speaker, Razo has been waiting to hear about the request for funding since August 2021. That's 1 year, 9 months ago. They haven't heard a peep from this government. My question, Speaker, is will the Conservative government fund Sudbury's supervised consumption service so that Razo can continue to save lives?
Stop the clock. Stop the clock. So, members will please take their seats. Once again, I'll point out to the House that it is inappropriate to make reference to the absence of another member, but it is not inappropriate to make reference to the presence of another member. It's also within the standing orders, allows the government to respond to a question if they choose to respond, or any minister or any parliamentary assistant can respond. Start the clock. The response, the Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Look, Mr. Speaker, we've made historic investments, Speaker, but you know who doesn't show up and has never showed up? It is the NDP. Look, this is a group that had the balance of power in this place, and they like to forget about that, right? So they had the ability to keep the Liberals in power or to end the misery of the people of the province of Ontario, and they chose to keep them in power. Now, Mr. Speaker, did they, when they had the opportunity to demand anything, did they do anything on mental health? No. Did they do anything to stop the opiate crisis that was emerging at the time? No. Did they say you have to invest in health care? No. Did they talk about jobs and the economy? No. They talked about a stretch goal in insurance and then abandoned that immediately. Sounds familiar? Because it sounds exactly what the NDP in Ottawa are doing when it comes to the investments that we are making in the auto sector. They sit on their hands, they do nothing, they don't show up, they collect a paycheck, and then they go home, Mr. Speaker. That's